Some of them were so angry that they coughed violently. They had their own pride and self-respect. His skills were inferior, and he was tortured by a young girl. It was already the most shameful thing in their lives. And now, he was even insulted by that young lady. Kill us if you dare. Judging from your young age, I'm afraid you haven't seen a dead person before. What's wrong? You're just talking big. Kill us. The black-robed men flew into a rage out of humiliation and ridiculed Yiqing Luo. They didn't believe that this innocent and harmless-looking young lady dared to kill them. Sister, why would anyone want to die so badly? Kitty Lee looked strangely at those black-robed men and asked. Chapter 2403. Then should we grant them their wish? Kitty Lee blinked her eyes. Since they want to die so badly, and your sister is such a kind person, naturally we should grant them their wish. Yiqing Luo smiled as she looked at the black-robed men lying on the ground. Don't say I didn't give you a chance to live, it's you who strongly requested to die. The black-robed men revealed their disdain. They couldn't believe that this beautiful girl, who was only 14 or 15 years old, would dare to kill more than a dozen men like them. Moreover, the young lady wanted to kill them. That would depend on whether she still had the chance. Just at this moment, a rustling sound was heard from the bushes in the forest. Yiqing Luo was on high alert as her gaze swept across the surroundings. The dense grass swayed non-stop, and the rustling sound was getting closer and closer. There was something in the bushes. One of the black-robed men heard the sound. His face immediately revealed a complacent expression. Yiqing Luo's heart jumped and immediately released her perception. This group of black-robed men still had a backup plan. This was really a big move. From the looks of it, the War King was determined to make her surrender. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as a cold glint flashed past her eyes. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Rustle, rustle, rustle. After a while, in the rustling sound, she saw one after another poisonous snakes spitting out blood with their scarlet tongues scurrying out. Densely packed poisonous snakes, some were huge, some were small. They were entangled together and wriggling continuously. This scene, even Yiqing Luo couldn't help but felt her scalp go numb. The poisonous snakes directly ignored those black-robed men lying on the ground and rushed towards Yiqing Luo one by one. Very quickly, with Yiqing Luo as the center, they surrounded her from all directions. The scarlet tongues made a hissing sound. Ha ha ha. Young lady, you're still too inexperienced. The black-robed men saw the poisonous snakes had surrounded Yiqing Luo and Kitty Lee. They also forced themselves to stand up. It was all thanks to these two ignorant young ladies. They didn't choose any place. They just had to come to this deserted forest. Just right for them. To have the chance to attract the poisonous snakes. Battle King had said that this young lady was very sinister and cunning. Moreover, he was an expert in using poison. Naturally, they would have two backup plans. Snake. There are so many snakes, sister. Kitty Lee couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over her body when she saw the coiled snakes. Kitty Lee was not afraid of snakes. However, it was too disgusting to face so many snakes. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly as a cold glint shot out from her charming eyes. Don't move. Kitty Lee shrunk beside Yiqing Luo as her sparkling eyes stared vigilantly at those venomous snakes. Ha ha ha. Little girl, do you think that if you don't move, these poisonous snakes won't attack you? No matter how strong you are, what can you do in the face of thousands of poisonous snakes? A man in black rubbed his chest and stood up shakily. Kitty Lee grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm as she pursed her lips tightly. Sister, why, they weren't affected by the venomous snakes. Not only was he not affected by the venomous snake. The venomous snakes had bypassed the men in black and were creeping towards them one after another. They have purposely brought scented sachets to ward off poisonous snakes. No wonder Yiqing Luo had always felt that there was a strange smell on those black-robed men. Presumably, it was to disperse these venomous snakes. She chose this forest. It was to prevent alerting the snakes. Chapter 2404. Kitty Lee's eyes widened. Then what should we do? Yi-Ching Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her gaze swept past those 10 over black-robed men. He was deep in thought. It was not realistic to kill these poisonous snakes. After all, there were at least a few thousand of them in front of him. If he made a move, these venomous snakes would definitely gang up on him. Yi-Ching Luo was not afraid of the venom. However, it didn't mean that Kitty Lee wasn't afraid. Moreover, these thousands of snakes all had different poisons. If he was corroded by the venom, she was also unable to find the corresponding antidote in the shortest time possible. He couldn't take that risk. Little girl, you still want to struggle? The black-robed men looked at the 2 young ladies who were surrounded by the venomous snakes. Earlier they who had their pride abused by Yi-Ching Luo finally had the feeling of exaltation. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, like a poisonous snake's eyes, staring at those black-robed men without blinking. The corners of her mouth curled up into an extremely enchanting cold arc. This smile. The black-clothed men felt their hairs stand on end. You can't wait to kill me? The War King is rather impatient. Yi-Ching Luo smiled calmly, but if I were to die, then no one would be able to cure eldest young Miss Meow's poison. Eldest young Miss Meow? The black-robed men were stunned, not understanding why Yi-Ching Luo would drag Miao Rongrong into this. Yi-Ching Luo raised her brows. You still don't know? Your family's little prince was poisoned. Miss Meow used a goo worm to cure the little prince, but she was infected with the residual poison. That was to say, Miss Meow was poisoned because of the young prince. If young Miss Meow's poison flared up, they would definitely blame it on the Battle King's mansion. The black-robed men understood the meaning behind Yi-Ching Luo's words. They frowned slightly. Stop spouting nonsense. These poisonous snakes are not under our control. No matter how glib your tongue is, today, as long as we bring your corpse back, our mission will be completed. Yi-Ching Luo couldn't help but laugh. The IQ of these people, she really did not want to complain anymore. It was already a miracle that he could survive until now on the battlefield. Now Yi-Ching Luo was completely certain. These people were sent by the War King's mansion. Moreover, from the looks of it, the Battle King General was determined to kill her to avenge Yuan Kuang. Yi-Ching Luo took a look at the surrounding venomous snakes as her gaze swiftly swept across the surrounding terrain. If he wanted to use the terrain to deal with these venomous snakes, Yi-Ching Luo took a look at Kitty Lee beside her. Her fingers tightened. Let Kitty Lee escape from the venomous snakes first. With a flick of her fingers, a feather fan that looked like a blazing flame appeared at her fingertips. Sister! Kitty Lee cried out in shock when she saw Yi-Ching Luo taking out the glower flame fan. He came to the Northern Wave continent in order to conceal his identity. Yi-Ching Luo had kept the glower flame fan all along. After all, the symbol of the red feather fan was too obvious. Do you still remember the footwork that sister taught you? Yi-Ching Luo lowered her voice and asked. Kitty Lee seemed to have reacted to Yi-Ching Luo's plan as she hurriedly shook her head. I can't let sister deal with those poisonous snakes alone. I'm not afraid of snakes. The venom of these snakes doesn't work on me, but it doesn't mean that it won't work on you. Leave this place first. Only then can I go all out. Yi-Ching Luo rubbed her little head. Be good, trust me. Kitty Lee wanted to say something. But seeing Yi-Ching Luo's resolute gaze and unquestionable tone, she swallowed her words back and spat out 4 words, I know. Star. Chapter 2405. Yi-Ching Luo's fingertips moved as the glower flame fan in her hands opened up. A burst of majestic profound energy was unleashed from her body. This powerful profound energy. It made those black-robed men's expressions change drastically. Thousands of poisonous snakes, under this powerful atmosphere, wriggled restlessly. Several poisonous snakes flicked their scarlet tongues. as though they were preparing to attack Yi Qing Luo together. Suddenly, a green figure swept past. A thick palm pressed on Yi Qing Luo's wrist, which was holding the glower flame fan, forcefully forcing back all her profound energy. Yi Qing Luo was shocked. That man had already thrown something towards the direction of the poisonous snakes. Hiss hiss hiss. The poisonous snakes suddenly twisted in extreme pain, as they kept on wriggling. After a while, as though they were escaping for their lives, they scuttled towards the surrounding bushes, leaving this place. In just a moment, the forest full of venomous snakes and murderous aura a moment ago was now completely empty. The black-robed men were stunned. Yi Qing Luo was also stunned. She stared blankly at that figure who was blocking in front of her. Why did it feel? This scene was a little familiar. Yi Qing Luo blinked as she regained her senses. Master Gu. This person wasn't anyone else. It was the young matriarch of Gu Feng's sect whom she met in the Peach Blossom restaurant in the afternoon, Gu Jingyu. In the afternoon, when she and Yu Ji were battling, it was also Gu Jingyu who blocked in front of her. How long had it been? It was him again, blocking in front of her. History was always shockingly similar. She was saved by Gu Jingyu again. This time she owed a favor. Gu Jingyu turned his head back, as his eyes revealed a sliver of astonishment. Miss Yi? How did you? He looked at those 10 over black-robed men, as he nodded in understanding. You are being pursued? Yi Qing Luo looked at those 10 over black-robed men, as she shrugged her shoulders. Very obvious. Need help? Gu Jingyu's gentle lips curled into a smile, as his gaze was gentle like water as he looked at Yi Qing Luo's face. His voice was very soft, but in his tone, there was a trace of unintelligible treachery. But Yi Qing Luo caught it. She frowned slightly, as she raised her head to meet Gu Jingyu's eyes. Was he angry because of her? However, she was even more certain that this seemingly gentle man was definitely not as gentle as he appeared on the surface. Yi Qing Luo concealed the deep thoughts in her eyes as she gave a slight smile. These dregs, it's not worthwhile for you to make a move. She did not want to owe Gu Jingyu a third favor. Jun Qingwu had already gone to the upper realm to inform DMO Xian about the situation in the North Continent. Ah Xian would be back soon. If Ah Xian knew that she owed a man 2 favors, he reckoned that the vinegar jar was about to flip over. Without waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak, Yi Qing Luo had already walked directly towards those 10 over black-robed men. As she walked, she kept the devouring flame fan back into the profound phoenix ring. He casually took out a long whip. 10 over black-robed men suddenly regained their senses as their eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo in shock. What was going on? Wasn't this little girl swallowed by the poisonous snake? Why did it become like this now? The 10 over black-robed men recalled the burst of profound energy which was released from Yi Qing Luo earlier. Instantly, there was a wave of fear in their hearts. But Yi Qing Luo's face was filled with fear as her pink lips rose slightly, like a poppy, blooming with a suffocating charm. Now, it's my turn to fulfill your wishes. 10 over black-robed men's pupils contracted, thinking of the clamor earlier when they were certain that Yi Qing Luo didn't dare to kill anyone. Looking at the current Yi Qing Luo who was filled with murderous intent, her eyes icy cold. Their spines instantly turned cold. Chapter 2406. Aren't all of you seeking death? Why do you want to be a stray dog now? Yi Qing Luo smiled as she gazed at those fleeing figures. Her frosty eyes were filled with a chilly glint. Her fingers moved. The long whip in her hand was like a poisonous snake as it swiftly coiled around them. No one could tell how she made her move. And what did she do? By the time everyone regained their senses, those 10 over black-robed men were trapped in the long whip. They were totally immobilized. The 10 over black-robed men's pupils dilated as they stared at Yi Qing Luo in horror. They couldn't react at all. They were so easily trapped by Yi Qing Luo without any chance to resist. Moreover, it was just a long whip. Trapping over 10 of them? Don't worry, I won't let you die in the wilderness. Yiqing Luo tilted her head, her long curly lashes were overflowing with color, shining with an intoxicating luster. The 10 black-robed men heard that and the fear on their faces grew thicker. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. Her fingers tightened as she quickly pulled those 10 black-robed men in front of her. Yiqing Luo's face was still that innocent and sweet smile. However, his eyes were calm without a single ripple. Ah! A series of miserable shrieks resounded in the air above the forest. Very quickly, it returned to peace. Yiqing Luo casually threw the long whip in her hand. Kitty! Yiqing Luo called out softly. Kitty Li hopped forward and held Yiqing Luo's arm. Hang these corpses at the main entrance of the Battle King's residence, the more obvious the better, the more sensational the better. Yiqing Luo's voice was very calm, as though she was talking about a very ordinary topic. Originally, Yiqing Luo had no intention to kill these black-robed men. But, if they didn't offend her, she naturally wouldn't offend them. These black-robed men wanted her life. Then they shouldn't blame her for being merciless and taking their lives. General Battle King. She would slowly settle it with him bit by bit. This scene was witnessed by Gu Jingyu. His gaze was deep and gentle as he stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. As though he wanted to see through her body and see her soul. It was so deep, so sincere. Gu Jingyu couldn't deny it. He had already been completely bewitched by this girl who could barely be considered delicate and pretty. Obviously, most of the women he had seen were many times more beautiful than her. But, this seemingly elegant young girl, however, it had a unique charm. He looked at the lifeless corpses that fell to the ground one by one. He then looked at the young girl who was standing beside the corpse and talking to the cute little girl calmly. His heart inexplicably tightened. It was as if some kind of emotion was gradually spreading. The girl in his eyes. Her clothes were simple but elegant. Her looks were barely elegant and pleasing to the eye. However, it was evil, like a blooming poppy flower. He continued to exude a suffocating charm. It captivated and moved one's soul. It was until Yiqing Luo finished instructing Kitty Li and walked towards Gu Jingyu. Only then did Gu Jingyu manage to regain his senses. What did you just say? Gu Jingyu looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she glanced at the ground full of corpses. Don't tell me you were frightened by these corpses? Chapter 2407. This looked like a pure and innocent young master. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. What's there to be surprised about? Surprised that I will kill people? It seemed that those black-robed men also thought that she didn't dare to kill them. She looked like a young lady who had no strength to truss a chicken. Gu Jingyu's blush turned even redder, as though his inner thoughts were exposed. Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's expression as she smiled faintly. She raised her head and looked at the azure sky through the dense trees. She smiled faintly. In this place where the strong are revered, where human lives are treated as grass, the only way to survive is to go out and block the enemy in front of you. Gu Jingyu was stunned as he looked at her in astonishment. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. I'm not a saint, I'm a human and I will be selfish and I don't want to die. Since I don't want to die, then in order to survive, my enemy can only die. So, killing people to me is very normal. No matter if it was her past life or this life. Killing people to her was as normal as eating a meal. She respected every life. And also respected every choice. If it wasn't for the fact that they offended her. If it wasn't for the fact that they wanted her life. She wouldn't bother about it. But, if the other party chose to be her enemy and wanted her life. Or it might affect the future of the people around her. Then. She would not hesitate to take action. She couldn't do it, to sacrifice her life for unimportant people. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Gu Jingyu was stunned momentarily. After some time, the gaze he used to look at Yi Qing Luo was filled with some heartache and connection. A light voice, with some illusory emptiness. You must have suffered a lot. For a young lady to say such words. He must have experienced a reign of terror and walked out of it. Otherwise, how was it possible for her to be so indifferent? Like just now. She killed 10 over black-robed men with her bare hands. There wasn't any change in her expression. It really seemed like something that couldn't be more normal. Yi Qing Luo met his heartache gaze and couldn't help but laughed out, young Master Gu's words. Make me seem to be very pitiful. As for me, I've never felt that my past life was bad for me. She chuckled, her eyes indifferent. It's because of my past that I've developed a strong heart. It's also why I can survive in this place. When Gu Jingyu heard that, he looked at Yi Qing Luo's elegant face and finally smiled warmly. Young miss is so open-minded, I've learned a lot. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand and took a look at Kitty Li, who was carrying Shi Ju and waiting for them to leave, as she brought up a topic. Right, Mr. Gu, why are you here? This place was half an hour's journey away from Qinhua City. She had purposely come here to lure the black-robed men. That Gu Jingyu, he mentioned the purpose of his visit. Gu Jingyu's expression suddenly froze. Oh no. I forgot all about it. I did it to save the Bu family village. Bu village? Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu's solemn expression. I'll follow you to take a look. Gu Jingyu hesitated for a moment. It will be dangerous. No worries. Yi Qing Luo shook her head and smiled faintly. You're clear about my ability, so don't worry about me. That's not something that can be solved with profound energy. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips. He pondered for some time before he decided, all right. Then remember to follow me closely. No matter what you see, don't be rash and act on your own. Chapter 2408. She followed Gu Jingyu to the Bu family village. There were 2 reasons. Firstly, she had to send Gu Jingyu away. Kitty Li and Shi Ju, who had reverted to its original form, moved those 10 over corpses. Earlier the glower flame fan had been seen by Gu Jingyu. If there was another Shi Ju's original form, even an idiot would know her real identity. Secondly, Bu, this surname. Previously, when she and Yuan Kuang had their first conflict, it was Miao Yi's grandma Bu who helped her. Later on, she almost suffered from the revenge of the Battle King's residents. This grandma Bu. And the Bu family village, surely there wasn't any connection? Yi Qing Luo decided to take a look for herself. The Bu family village was not far from this forest. As long as they passed through this forest and walked for another 10 over kilometers, they would be able to see the Bu family village's sign. It was no wonder that Gu Jingyu would so coincidentally enter this forest. The 2 of them walked into the Bu family village one after another. This village looked extremely dilapidated and poor. As far as the eye could see, there were a few thatched huts. The slightly better ones were the wooden huts. There were about 10 over houses. The entire village probably wasn't as big as her garden in the old mansion. Moreover, the people in this village were mostly old people who were over 50 years old. Seeing some outsiders coming over, those old people all set their gazes on them curiously. Yi Qing Luo surveyed the surroundings. She didn't sense anything strange. Luckily, we arrived in time. Seeing the peace in the village, Gu Jingyu heaved a sigh of relief. He looked sideways at the young lady beside him and his tone was obviously much more relaxed. Sorry for making you worried. We arrived in time. This village. Is something going to happen? Yi Qing Luo asked in puzzlement. Gu Jingyu only smiled. The 2 of them walked all the way to the end of the village. Only then did they stop. Tired? Gu Jingyu looked at Yi Qing Luo gently. Yi Qing Luo nodded. Gu Jingyu then started walking towards a wooden hut at the end of the village. This was a shed made of wood, and there were a few wooden tables and chairs. An old man was boiling water in front of the stove. Old grandpa, can I have some water? Gu Jingyu asked gently and elegantly. The old man raised his head. It took a long time for his muddy eyes to see Gu Jingyu's face. He quickly revealed a kind smile and said, "Young man, sit down. The tea will be ready soon." Gu Jingyu expressed his thanks and turned his head towards Yiqing Luo. "Sit down and wait for a while." Yiqing Luo didn't know what he was up to. She followed him to a nearby wooden table and sat down. Soon, the old man brought out the tea that he had brewed. Gu Jingyu sent a cup of tea to Yiqing Luo's table. "Drink some tea first and take a rest." Yiqing Luo received the tea and politely thanked him. The cup was rough. However, the fragrance of the tea that wafted out was extremely rich and pleasant. The mist clouded her eyes. She took a sip of her tea. It was extremely mellow, and the fragrance lingered in the mouth. She couldn't help but praise, "Good tea." When the old man heard this, he chuckled and said, "It's good that you like it. Our village isn't good at other things, but our tea leaves are especially fragrant." The old man was very hospitable. Intentionally or unintentionally, Gu Jingyu wanted to find out the situation of the Bu family village from the old man's mouth. Very quickly, they started chatting. Yiqing Luo drank her tea and Gu Jingyu would refill her tea from time to time. Chapter 2409. Young couple. Pray for children. What a big misunderstanding. This was a big misunderstanding. Yiqing Luo quickly put down the teacup and explained seriously, "Old grandpa, you've misunderstood. He and I are just ordinary friends, not. Young couple are still so shy. I'm experienced. I understand, I understand." The old man nodded with an "I understand" expression and smiled ambiguously. Yiqing Luo wanted to cry but no tears came out. This misunderstanding had to be explained clearly. She was a married woman. "Master Gu, you have to explain to old grandpa, a woman's reputation is very important." Yiqing Luo decisively asked Gu Jingyu for help. While Gu Jingyu was in a daze. The old man's words, "young couple," echoed in his ears. In his heart, there was an inexplicable feeling of satisfaction. Young couple was not bad. If he could become husband and wife with such a woman, he could let go and fight for his own ambition. Hearing Yiqing Luo's cry for help, Gu Jingyu suddenly regained his senses and his gentle gaze met her eyes. "It's hard to change the old man's mind. Explaining will only make things worse. You don't have to worry about it." Yiqing Luo expressed that she cared. But it was indeed as Gu Jingyu said. The more she explained, the more excited the old man was that she and Gu Jingyu were a young couple. She was thinking of ways to convince the old man that she had nothing to do with Gu Jingyu. But she heard Gu Jingyu casually asked while drinking his tea, "I heard that this month, no one went to the sacred spring to pray for children. Is it because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore?" The old man's smile suddenly froze. A trace of pain flashed past his muddy old eyes. Gu Jingyu immediately put down the teacup and apologized guiltily. "Sorry old grandpa, if I asked something inconvenient, just pretend I didn't say it. It's not inconvenient." The old man sighed heavily. "You will know sooner or later." He paused and put down the tray in his hand. "This month, there are indeed no young couples going to the sacred spring. Not because the sacred spring is not efficacious anymore, but the Bu family village is not peaceful. To go to the sacred spring, you must pass through the Bu family village. But recently, there will always be a group of people who will come to the Bu family village to make trouble, plunder the resources of the village, and from time to time, they will kill the travelers or villagers who pass through the village." At this point, the old man's voice was choking. "Who is it? Plunder resources?" Yiqing Luo suddenly put down the teacup. The Bu family village was inhabited by some old people. Other than tea leaves, what other resources could there be? He couldn't even feed himself anymore. And it had to be plundered by others? "I don't know either. Those people are here to look for someone." They were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. "If you don't hand over that person, then we'll come again. We'll rob and kill until everyone in the Bu family village is dead. The old man closed his eyes. During this period of time, those people have come more frequently. 2 young couples have already died under the blades of those people, so, those young couples don't dare to go to the holy spring to pray for children anymore. Looking for someone? Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu shook his head. After you two have finished your tea, immediately rush to the holy spring. Leave the village before those people come, then you won't have to worry about your lives. The old man put away his sorrowful emotions and revealed a kind smile. He chuckled and said, "You two are here to happily pray for a child. Don't listen to this old man's nonsense and let it affect your mood." The old man's smile seemed to sweep away all the haze. Chapter 24:10. Old Grandpa, since those people frequently come to harass the village, why haven't you left yet? Yi Qing Luo looked around at those villagers who surrounded them in 2s and 3s. Perhaps this was the first time they had seen visitors. People with outstanding temperament like Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu. These people were all over 50 years old and their clothes were extremely rough. Some were carrying hoes, some were carrying machetes, some were leaning on farming tools. Although they looked like they had been through hardships. But on everyone's faces, they all had a faint smile on their faces. It seemed to be happy that a guest had finally passed by the Bu family village. Yi Qing Luo guessed. They probably thought that batch of people would not come again. So outsiders finally dared to head to the sacred spring to pray for children. Since this Bu family village was so dangerous, they were unable to hand over who those people were looking for. Why not leave this dangerous place directly? Leave. The old man laughed lightly. The young people have all left. Some went to Qinhua City, some went to other big cities. We old fellows. If we leave, in future when those young people want to come back, they can't find a home, what should we do? Yi Qing Luo's heart tightened. The expression in Gu Jingyu's eyes became gentler. All right, you two, hurry to the sacred spring, don't waste any more time. The old man didn't want to say anything more as he picked up the tray, waved his hand and returned to the stove. Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu looked at the tea in their cups, speechless. After some time, Gu Jingyu spoke warmly. The old people in the Bu family village are very kind. This is the reason why I came here. Do you know who that group of people are? Yi Qing Luo thought of Gu Jingyu's purpose of coming to the Bu family village. Could it be because of those people who were harassing them? I'm not sure who they are, so I specially came to confirm. Gu Jingyu shook his head and answered truthfully. After knowing who those people are, will you help the Bu family village or that group of people? Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight at Gu Jingyu. In your heart, what kind of person am I? Gu Jingyu heard that and a trace of sadness flashed past his gentle eyes. Yi Qing Luo lowered her head silently. What kind of person was Gu Jingyu? She wasn't sure. The only thing she knew was that this man was not as kind as he seemed on the surface. Her silence. This caused the sadness in Gu Jingyu's eyes to become even thicker. He sighed and drank the tea in his cup. If you want me to help the Bu family village, I will help the Bu family village. In that case, right from the start, you weren't here to help the Bu family village? Yi Qing Luo understood the deeper meaning behind his words. However, he did not hear the flirtatious tone in Gu Jingyu's words. Even old man Song, who was within the azure dew bracelet, couldn't help but hold his forehead. Did this girl put all her EQ on Dizun, the boy? She couldn't tell that Gu was flirting with her. Gu Jingyu's mood became increasingly gloomy. He felt somewhat defeated. When had he ever been ignored by a woman like this? Now, it was rare for him to have a woman that he wanted. But this woman was completely uninterested in him. The atmosphere between the two was a little strange. The surrounding villagers watched for a long time. The whispers began. Every time he sees this young couple, he thinks of his son and daughter-in-law. Chapter 24:11. His wife also went to the city to look for their son, but... Sigh. The villagers sighed regretfully. Elder T is too stubborn, staying in the Bu family village. Not only is his life in danger, he is also living in waiting every day. Why not go directly to the city? Chinua City is not far from here. Actually, it's better to go and see how his wife and son are doing in the city. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly when she heard those words. She got up and looked at those villagers. Grandpas, you said Elder T's son is in Chinua City? The villagers were stunned. They looked at Yi Qing Luo in panic. You? How did you hear us? They were whispering to each other, and their voices were clearly very soft. If it were ordinary people, those they were discussing, ordinary people indeed couldn't hear them clearly. But Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu were cultivators, and their cultivation was rather high. The villagers' words were naturally heard clearly. We came from Chinua City. Yi Qing Luo didn't answer the villagers' question but said directly, if it's possible, we can help Elder T to look for his wife and son. The villagers looked at each other and stared at each other in bewilderment. No one spoke. The old man noticed the commotion over here and waved a huge cattail leaf fan at those villagers. What are you gossiping about again? Go away, don't disturb the guests drinking their tea. Those villagers shook their heads helplessly but still left the tea house. The old man smiled and waved the cattail leaf fan at Yi Qing Luo. Young lady, don't listen to their nonsense. Finish your tea and go to the sacred spring with your husband. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. She wasn't a kind person, but she was a person with a heart. Losing news of her loved ones. And those robbers, time and time again, harassed the Bu family village, killing the villagers cruelly. But he couldn't leave. Afraid that if he left, his loved ones would return and couldn't find him. The old grandpa's heart was actually more uncomfortable than anyone else. But he still had to consider their feelings, smiling benevolently. Elder T was really a very gentle old grandpa. So gentle that it made the usually emotionless her. He couldn't help but feel his heart ache. Old grandpa, it's going to be the Chinua sect leader's 50th birthday soon. The citizens of Chinua City have to stand on the streets to celebrate the sect leader's birthday. If you're looking for your son and wife, why don't you show us their portraits? We'll go back to Chinua City and help you look for them. Yi Qing Luo did not force Elder T to leave with her. However, since he already knew about this matter, if it was convenient for her to help, this matter could not be left unattended. The smile on Elder T's face froze. He seemed to be hesitating. To be more precise, he was afraid. What was there to be afraid of? He was afraid that his wife and son had not returned yet. What if fear is bad news? Or was he afraid that his son and wife would live in the city and not want an old man like him? No matter which one it was. Even old-time T was afraid to find out. He would rather hold on to this hope and silently guard it. Yi Qing Luo didn't urge or force Elder T, only waiting for him to make his own choice. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Elder T finally heaved a heavy sigh. Forget it, there's no use guarding this false hope. I want to know what's their situation now. As long as they're safe, no matter what, I'll be at ease. Saying that, Elder T walked into the small wooden house with heavy footsteps. Chapter 24:12. The old man's gaze stared at the wooden box in his hand, filled with longing and longing. He walked in front of Yi Qing Luo, placing the wooden box on the wooden table. That wooden box looked exquisite and extremely clean. She could tell that the old man often flipped through this wooden box. The things in the wooden box. It was also the obsession that supported him till now. The old man's wrinkled hands trembled as he opened the wooden box. In the wooden box, there were a few small things. And there were 2 paintings. The old man picked up one of the paintings. His fingertips were trembling slightly. Yi Qing Luo didn't rush him, nor did she disturb him. After some time, the old man slowly placed the painting on the table. This is the only painting this old woman has. Before she went to the city to look for her son, a young couple who passed by drew the only painting for her. The old man's voice sounded choked. The yellowed painting slowly opened up. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the village. Those villagers who were called away by the old man earlier all ran back. Elder T. Quickly keep the things, those people are here again. The old man's hand which was opening the painting paused. The expression on his face turned extremely ugly. He abruptly kept the painting into the wooden box. Run, run, run. Why are you running? Haven't you learned to be obedient? A rough voice was heard from afar. A group of people, about 40 to 50 people, majestically walked into the Boo family village. The few men who were walking in front were dressed in strange black clothing, short top, tight long pants, with a black belt embroidered with strange patterns on their waists, directly lifted their feet, and kicked those villagers who ran over. These villagers were all ordinary people, and they were all old. After being kicked, they immediately fell onto the ground, screaming in pain, and were unable to move. Those men laughed loudly, all the way to the tea house. Young people, you find a chance to run. These people are not good people. Elder T looked at those people, as his face sunk, as he suppressed his voice. These people. Were they the ones who robbed the Boo family village of resources, and indiscriminately killed innocent people? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes, as she took in these 40 to 50 people, in a panoramic view. These people's clothing was strange, but extremely familiar. If she didn't remember wrongly, his attire was similar to that of the Miao tribe's patriarch that she had seen in the Battle King's mansion. However, the Miao tribe leader's clothes were obviously more luxurious. In other words, these people were from the Miao tribe. Why did the Miao people want to harass the Boo family village? And to use such cruel methods? Who was the person they were looking for? Run? Where do you think you're going? Elder T, under my nose, who do you think you can let escape? The Miao people parted to form a path. A middle-aged man in his 40s walked out. Yi Qing Luo could tell from that man's clothing and patterns. This person was among this group of Miao people. His status was the highest. If he didn't guess wrong, this person should be one of the elders of the Miao tribe. Sure enough, in the next moment, Elder T suppressed his anger and said, "Third Elder Miao, you just want to find someone in the Boo family village. This young couple is just passing by the Boo family village. They want to go to the holy spring to pray for a child. Why do you have to be so aggressive?" Third Elder Miao laughed loudly. He walked directly to the tea house, and very naturally sat down at the table next to Yi Qing Luo. He swept a disdainful glance at Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu, and his gaze paused slightly on Gu Jingyu. But very quickly, he arrogantly turned his head around. Star. Chapter 24:13. Tsk Tisk, Elder T, you can't even protect yourself, and you still want to protect these two youngsters? Third Elder Miao laughed mockingly. Elder T's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. It's not a matter of protecting them, they're just innocent passers-by. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh out loud. The surrounding attendants all laughed in agreement. For a moment, the originally quiet Boo family village was filled with ear-piercing laughter. The atmosphere of the entire village became extremely strange. Since you're so afraid that this elder will hurt innocent passers-by, then this elder will hurt innocent people even more. Third Elder Miao's eyes were hazy as he laughed coldly. His gaze slowly landed on the expressionless young girl. The young girl was extremely calm as she looked at the 40 or so people without a ripple in her eyes. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but frown. He had come to the Boo family village to look for someone. He wanted to see the useless people of the Boo family village kneel and beg for mercy, only to be toyed with and applauded by him. This passerby wasn't afraid of them at all. Heh. Did he really think that they would only target the Boo family village? Wouldn't they hurt the innocent? His gaze turned cold as he laughed coldly and continued, "You bunch of old farts won't hand over the person that this elder wants. Then, this elder will start with these innocent passers-by." Elder T's entire body trembled in anger. Third elder meow, "Don't you meow people go too far. Our Boo family village doesn't have the person you're looking for. You want to use this excuse to plunder our resources. How dare you hurt these innocent people? Our Boo family village will fight to the death with you." Third elder meow looked like he had heard a joke as he looked at the clansmen around him and burst into laughter again. "Fight to the death? You bunch of old and weak trash," the meow people said disdainfully. As he spoke, he kicked the villagers who were unable to move on the ground a few more times. "Come. Get up and fight to the death with us. A bunch of old farts." There were also a few meow people who pushed the trembling villagers to the ground. It was obvious that this was the norm in the Boo family village. You are a bunch of animals." Elder T clenched his fists and pressed his palms on the table, trembling. Third elder meow looked at Elder T disdainfully with his sinister eyes. His eyes suddenly fell on the delicate wooden box under Elder T's palm. The meow people beside him had sharp eyes and walked over. "Hey, Elder T, what other treasures are you hiding?" As he spoke, the meow man snatched the wooden box from Elder T's hand. It was so fast that old-time T couldn't react at all. Elder T's expression changed drastically. He immediately rushed forward and snatched it back. "Give it back. I can give you anything you want. No one is allowed to touch this thing." Elder T's attitude piqued Third Elder Meow's interest. He spread his hands. The meow lackey immediately handed the wooden box to Third Elder Meow. The other meow tribesman easily stopped Elder T. A meow tribesman pushed hard. Old-time T's body stumbled and fell backward. Behind Elder T was Yiqing Luo's wooden table. The position where he fell was coincidentally going to hit the corner of the wooden table. To the old man, it would cause a fatal injury. Just as Elder T fell, Yiqing Luo's body had already stood up quickly and caught hold of Elder T. Chapter 24:14. Elder T had no time to express his gratitude. He had just steadied himself when he dashed towards Third Elder Meow's direction in tears. "Bastard. Don't touch it. Bastard. Return the box to me. Old Grandpa." Yiqing Luo held on to Elder T. Elder T was an ordinary person. If he insisted on charging forward, he would be sending himself to his death. Yiqing Luo naturally couldn't watch Elder T send himself to his death. Elder T stared at the wooden box in Third Elder Meow's hands as he bellowed furiously, "Let me go. I'm going to fight with that bastard. I'm going to fight with him." Yiqing Luo held onto him tightly. Very quickly, she pulled Elder T behind her back. Elder T wailed as he struggled with all his might, trying to charge towards Third Elder Meow. The more Elder T did so, Third Elder Meow became more and more interested in the contents of the wooden box. He seemed to be intentionally provoking Elder T. Holding onto the wooden box, he shook it roughly from left to right. He sneered in disdain, "What's in it? It's just a low-quality wooden box, how can it be so precious?" He casually tossed it in his hands. That action agitated Elder T once again. The surrounding villagers had long been harassed by the Meow tribesmen time and time again and were already annoyed beyond endurance. They were afraid of the Meow people's cruelty and brutality. But at this very moment, looking at Elder T's most precious wooden box, which he usually hugged in his arms like a treasure, the wooden box that no one in the village was allowed to touch, being trampled by Third Elder Meow. The rage that surged up in his heart, the so-called fear, had long been replaced by it. It was just death anyway. Being tortured, robbed and trampled on by the Meow people. Being hung up and beaten every single day. Compared to death, how was this any better? Fight with this bunch of bastards. Don't let them rob and humiliate us anymore. Even if we die, we must drag this bunch of bastards down with us. The surrounding villagers suddenly burst into a tragic roar of anger. Their faces were filled with an expression of facing death with equanimity. All of them raised their hoes, farming tools, etc. as they charged towards the Meow people. The Meow people totally didn't expect that this bunch of old and weak trash would suddenly go berserk. For a moment, they couldn't react in time. A group of villagers pounced on him and smashed his head. The 41 Meow people, at least a dozen of them, were pressed on the ground by a group of villagers, venting their anger. For such a long time, they were all suppressing their anger. At this moment, all of his anger was burning. They were burning with all their might. Elder T looked at the chaotic scene. He shook off Yi Qing Luo, who refused to let go of him. Young lady, immediately leave this place with your husband amid the chaos. These people are deranged and will not let any innocent people go. As he was saying that, he pushed Yi Qing Luo towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu exchanged glances. At this critical juncture, how could they possibly leave? If they left the Bu family village now, the Meow would definitely slaughter the entire Bu village. Seeing that the two of them were still standing in their original positions, Zhang Xian nodded. Elder T struggled even harder. Little girl, let go of me. Let's go. Let's go. Don't tell me you really want to die here with us bunch of old fellows. Old grandpa, if you believe me, I guarantee that no one in the Bu family village will be missing. Yi Qing Luo used her other hand and gently patted the wrinkled back of Elder T's hand. The young lady's resolute tone, as though it carried boundless energy. Elder T was stunned by Yi Qing Luo's words. Star. Chapter 24:15. Just at this moment, after a short period of chaos, the Meow tribesmen had already regained their senses. Third Elder Meow stood up abruptly, holding the wooden box, as he pointed towards those maddened old villagers. Quick! Beat them to death! Kill this bunch of idiots who have eaten the hearts of bears and leopards' guts. The other Meow tribesmen who had not been beaten up by the villagers immediately pounced forward. The villagers were after all ordinary people. Venting their anger was not able to turn them into Super Saiyan in an instant, to explode out their battle potential. But moments later, they were restrained by that bunch of Meow tribesmen. Beat them up viciously. Third Elder Meow pointed at those villagers who had injuries on their faces, but were still stubborn and unyielding. He held the wooden box tightly in his hands. He was so infuriated that his expression was extremely gloomy. That was a handmade wooden box. Under his extreme strength, it gave off a cracking sound. Elder T looked at the scene in front of him, as tears filled his entire old face. He pushed Yi Qing Luo with force. Young lady, that is the only remembrance left to me by my wife and son. Let me go over. Let me go over. Yi Qing Luo still didn't let go. Her charming eyes slowly swept past those villagers who had been suppressed by the Meow tribesmen till they had no way to resist. The Meow tribesmen heard Third Elder Meow's command. Thinking of the predicament of being beaten up by this bunch of old, weak and disabled trash, they immediately raised their hands, as they directly punched towards those villagers. They used all their strength. These ordinary old villagers totally could not take a few punches from them. The Meow tribesmen also used all their strength, totally wanting to take the lives of those villagers. Stop. Suddenly, a chilly voice rang, as ethereal and melodious to the ears. That voice was very soft and gentle, but it brought along an indescribable deterrent force. Immediately, the entire village seemed to have pressed the freeze button. Frozen on the spot. A red figure slowly walked out. Everyone's gazes turned over one by one. He saw a petite figure standing before the third elder of the Meow clan. He was only 2 steps away from Third Elder Meow. The young lady's looks were elegant. Between her brows, there was a trace of absolute chilliness. The blazing red dress swayed even though there was no wind. It made her look like a fairy from the 9 heavens. His heart could not help but tremble. Third Elder Meow was the first to regain his senses. Frowning, he stared at the young girl in front of him and threatened in a low voice, "Little girl, are you ordering us?" Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she met Third Elder Meow's warning gaze. She narrowed her eyes. "No, I'm warning you." "Warning?" Third Elder Meow repeated his words and laughed maniacally. "Little girl, do you know who we are? Even if you want to show off, you have to look at the occasion." Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, her long and narrow eyes slightly fluttered. The innocence and pureness of the young girl were fully displayed. "Are you people? I thought you were just a bunch of beasts." She paused and covered her mouth. "Tui tui tui, I said it wrong, after being scolded by Yi Qing Luo. The Meow people's faces turned extremely ugly. But he saw Yi Qing Luo covering her mouth in a mischievous and adorable manner, as though she had said something wrong. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Little girl still knows fear, that means there's nothing wrong with your brain. Saying you're beasts is already praising you." Yi Qing Luo added another sentence. Her long and narrow eyes curved, showing her pureness. Third Elder Meow's face instantly turned black. Chapter 24:16. Put it down. Just as Third Elder Meow was about to smash it down, the young lady calmly spat out 2 words. Her calm and indifferent voice. It revealed an unshakable charisma. Even Third Elder Meow, who was used to killing, seemed to have lost all his energy when he heard these 2 words. Third Elder Meow's expression changed slightly as anger surged in his eyes. How could he be frightened by a young lady? "Young lady, how dare you put on an act?" Third Elder Meow suppressed the fear in his heart as his sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. But, the next moment, after meeting Yi Qing Luo's eyes, that pair of eyes, what kind of eyes? That gaze was like a poisonous snake. It coiled around him tightly, making him unable to breathe. Obviously, her pupils were like glass, crystal clear. Obviously, her eyes were long and narrow, with an evil charm. That kind of enchanting charm. That kind of beauty that could topple a city. But it was filled with an austere and cold chill. Just a glance. But it made one feel. The feeling of falling into an ice cellar. Third Elder Meow's body froze on the spot. That hand, which was raised up high, suddenly loosened. The wooden box fell from his hand. Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand and caught that wooden box. But because of Third Elder Meow's anger, the wooden box which he held tightly had long lost its original firmness. The moment the wooden box fell into Yi Qing Luo's hands, it had already broken into pieces. The things in the wooden box all fell onto the ground. "Old woman." Elder T pounced forward, using his own body to block the things that fell out of the wooden box. He swiftly picked up the things, as he softly apologized to the things that fell onto the ground. As though he was apologizing to his own wife. Elder T speedily picked up the things. The surrounding, no Meow people dared to step forward to stop him. Because Yi Qing Luo was standing beside Elder T. Her entire body was emitting a horrifying pressure. Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyelids, looking at Elder T wrapping those things which were more important than his life, into his clothes. The things were all picked up. She slowly bent down, as she was about to help Elder T up. Elder T was anxious and agitated to regain these important things. His fingers kept trembling. With Yi Qing Luo's support, Elder T stood up. In his hand, he was still carefully rolling up the scroll that had fallen on the ground. His fingers trembled. The entire scroll was unfurled. The portrait in the scroll reflected into Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted. Elder T immediately squatted down and held the scroll in his arms as if it was a treasure. Yi-Ching Luo held old-time T's wrist tightly. Grandpa, wait. Elder T felt like he was in a dream. Now, he was very clear. This young couple. They were all extraordinary people. Perhaps, these two would be the salvation of the Bu family village. Let me have a look at the picture scroll. Yi-Ching Luo asked gently. Old-time T was stunned. He looked at the scroll in his arms and then looked at Yi-Ching Luo. Soon after, he slowly loosened his grip and unfurled the scroll. In the painting, there was an old woman wearing coarse clothes. His smile was extremely kind and gentle. He could tell. This was also a very gentle person. Yi-Ching Luo knew the person in the painting. She had just met the person in the painting not long ago. Wasn't it the first day she came to the northern continent, when she had a conflict with Yuan Kuang? The Granny Bu who wholeheartedly wanted to sacrifice herself to save her. She had not expected. Chapter 24:17. Little girl, you know the person in the portrait? Looking at Yi-Ching Luo's expression, Elder T's heart suddenly jumped and he asked nervously. Yi-Ching Luo pursed her pink lips. Thinking about what Miao Yi had said about Grandma Chi's grandson, she was silent for a while, then nodded. When I first arrived in Joyful Heart City, Grandma Bu helped me a little, so we can be considered acquaintances. Elder T's eyes widened. His turbid old eyes were gradually covered by a layer of mist. Tears, along his wrinkled face, slid down bit by bit. He grabbed Yi-Ching Luo's arm agitatedly. You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? The old woman, she's still alive, still alive. Her voice was choked with sobs as she said, You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? Looking at Elder T's tearful face, Yi-Ching Luo's heart softened a little. No matter what the reason was, Grandma Bu didn't return to the Bu family village. He didn't see Elder T again. For old-time T. None of this was important. The important thing was, Granny Bu was still alive. His wife was still alive. This was the best answer she could give him. After everything is settled, follow us to Qinghua City to meet Grandma Bu. Yi-Ching Luo held Elder T's hand tightly and patted it lightly. She must want to see you very much. Elder T choked with sobs and couldn't speak. He wiped the tears off his face and nodded. Yi-Ching Luo and Elder T had no one in their eyes as they chatted idly. The surrounding Miao tribesmen felt as if they had been disgraced. Especially Third Elder Miao. His face was as black as charcoal. You bunch of old and weak trash. How dare you be so bold? Third Elder Miao gritted his teeth and roared, Little girl, do you want to meddle in other people's business? Today, this elder will make an example of you first. As the third elder of the Miao tribe. In front of the Miao tribesmen, he was repeatedly frightened by a young girl who looked no more than 14 or 15 years old, and he did not even dare to resist. If the news spread to the Miao stockade village, what face would he have left to face the Miao tribesmen? It was very likely that his position as the third elder would not be stable. He had to get back at them. He had to teach this bitch a lesson. Third Elder Miao's eyes revealed a vicious glint as the attack in his hands had already turned into a biting cold murderous intent, pouncing towards Yi-Ching Luo. A terrifying aura. In an instant, it spread throughout the entire Bu family village. Grandpa, take the villagers and hide well. With me around, no one will be in danger. Yi-Ching Luo pushed Elder T towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Then, he leaped up and flew towards the profound energy released by Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao's attack. She could not avoid him. Once she avoids it, Third Elder Miao's attack would fall on the innocent villagers behind her. And these villagers were just ordinary people. The aftershock of Third Elder Miao's attack would also injure the villagers. The only thing she could do, it was to force Third Elder Miao's attack back. Furthermore, suppress Third Elder Miao. Gu Jingyu supported Elder T. He frowned slightly and raised his head to look at the girl who was leaving a trail of sunset in the sky. His heart was beating faster and faster. Why, he was clearly beside her. But she wasn't willing to rely on him? Why must she choose to risk her life to save the Bu family village's villagers? She obviously knew. He would rush over to the Bu family village to save the villagers. But she didn't say anything to him. This kind of woman. Chapter 24:18. Third Elder Miao and Yiqing Luo exchanged over 10 moves. Third Elder Miao realized the disparity between his and Yiqing Luo's abilities. His expression became even more solemn. He was overwhelmed with shock. He couldn't believe that this young lady who looked so weak that she could be easily strangled actually possessed such powerful strength. Even he wasn't her match. Since when was there such an incredible young lady in the North Continent? But moments later, Third Elder Miao was covered in injuries as he was flung out in an extremely pathetic state. Third Elder Miao finally stabilized his footing. His entire body was covered in injuries as it affected his muscles. It was so painful that he grimaced in pain. He couldn't help but curse at this wretched hussy's insidiousness. Yiqing Luo's injuries on Third Elder Miao didn't even use her profound energy to hurt his internal organs. But she kept on giving Third Elder Miao one injury after another. Moreover, the injuries on every part of his body were all places that could easily be affected, and the pain would be extreme. At this moment, Third Elder Miao was in an extremely sorry state. You bunch of good-for-nothings. Hurry up and help me. Third Elder Miao bellowed angrily at the surrounding Miao people. Those 40 to 50 Miao people were probably shocked by Yiqing Luo's ferocious battle power. But no one stepped forward. Third Elder Miao was so angry that he stomped his feet. But no matter how he scolded or howled, those Miao people stood on the spot as they stared at him with wide eyes. No matter how badly he was tortured by Yiqing Luo, he was in an extremely pathetic state. Whereas on the other side, under Gu Jingyu's protection, Elder T had gathered all the Bu family village villagers at a corner of the tea house. Elder T hugged the things in his arms tightly as he looked at Yiqing Luo worriedly. Young master, you go help your wife, we'll be fine. Gu Jingyu placed one hand behind his back as he looked at Yiqing Luo's direction with a complicated gaze. He looked at the villagers who were hiding behind him as they trembled in fear but were worried about the situation anxiously. Eventually he shook his head. She can handle it alone, I'll protect you. If she leaves you, the Miao people might take the opportunity to kidnap you to threaten her. When the villagers heard that, they couldn't persuade further. Indeed, if there was no one to protect them, they would be easily captured by the Miao people. By then, it would implicate that young lady instead. Soon, the battle ended. Third Elder Miao lay on the ground in a sorry state, his body covered in blood. He no longer had the strength to move. His body was still twitching and trembling. Yiqing Luo casually swung the long whip in her hand. The whip cut through the air, making a hua hua sound. It was also mixed with a wave of air that kept rolling. Third Elder Miao trembled even more violently when he saw this. He cowered in fear. Where was the slightest bit of his usual high-spirited demeanor? Just earlier, he was whipped by Yiqing Luo till his entire body was covered with injuries. Moreover, the sharp pain on his body did not numb him at all. Instead, it became more and more painful. He screamed in pain. Even if he wanted to faint, he couldn't. A shadow had already formed in his heart. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly, as her long and narrow eyes outlined an extremely shallow arc. She bent down and looked down at the man who was trembling with fear. What? Aren't you going to teach me a lesson? Why was he curled up on the ground? How are you going to lecture me like this? His words caused Third Elder Miao's face to turn red with shame. But Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see his shame. Chapter 24:19. You How dare you? The more Yi Qing Luo said she didn't want his life, the more afraid third elder Miao was. His eyes widened and his hoarse voice was filled with hatred and murderous intent. You dare to kill me? I'm an elder of Miao Miao. I'm an elder of Miao Miao Miao. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled fearlessly. Very soon, you won't be. Perhaps this sentence had infuriated third elder Miao. His body, which was sprawled on the ground, started to twist violently. Slut. This elder wants you dead. Want you? He was roaring. His voice was almost hoarse. Just at this moment, Yi Qing Luo saw clearly that third elder Miao's pupils suddenly widened. Numerous black things started to spread out from third elder Miao's right eye. The white of his eye slowly turned black. It blended together with the color of his pupils. Third elder Miao's right eye was pitch black, like a bottomless black hole. It was extremely horrifying. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly as she stared at third elder Miao's right eye. She wasn't sure what was going on with third elder Miao's eye. Behind her, Gu Jingyu's panicked voice was heard. Miss Yi, be careful. The next moment, her wrist was tightened. Her body was suddenly pulled by someone. Her face crashed into a solid chest. Gu Jingyu, what are you doing? The unfamiliar man's presence wrapped around her body. Yi Qing Luo couldn't tolerate any man other than a Xian touching her. She felt a wave of disgust and discomfort. She struggled. Gu Jingyu hugged her even tighter. Bam! The man's suppressed groan was heard beside her ear. Yi Qing Luo was stunned as she pushed Gu Jingyu away and looked up at him. Gu Jingyu's face was pale as a trace of blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. He met Yi Qing Luo's gaze. He immediately raised his hand and wiped the trace of blood from the corner of his lips as he took a deep breath and stabilized himself. What's the matter? Yi Qing Luo grabbed Gu Jingyu's arm. The cold touch made her frown even tighter. Nothing. Gu Jingyu's lips twitched as he shook his head indifferently. You don't need to bother about me, I'll leave these people to you. Yi Qing Luo didn't let go of his wrist. Tell me the truth. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips, turned his head, and did not speak. Clearly, he wasn't going to tell the truth. Ha. Ha ha ha. What a lovely couple, third elder Miao panted heavily, but he could not stop laughing. Yi Qing Luo pulled Gu Jingyu away and looked at third elder Miao. Third elder Miao's eyes had already returned to normal. She frowned as she recalled third elder Miao's black eyes. She then recalled the scene of Gu Jingyu hugging her tightly, his back facing third elder Miao, and the scene of him getting injured. Could it be, your little lover has been poisoned by my special Gu poison? As long as I'm injured, he'll be injured too. Ha 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 ha. Third elder Miao clutched his chest and laughed. Little girl, didn't you want to kill me? Kill me, and this little lover of yours will die with me. Sure enough, it was Gu poison. Yi Qing Luo's expression sunk as she glanced sideways at Gu Jingyu. As expected, as third elder Miao laughed heartily, Gu Jingyu's face grew paler. He couldn't even stand stably. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand to support him as she turned her head to look at third elder Miao. Remove the goo immediately. Chapter 24:20. Yi Qing Luo's fingers clenched as an eerie glint appeared in her eyes. Are you threatening me? Third elder Miao could tell that Yi Qing Luo cared a lot about her little lover. He had a way to control Yi Qing Luo. Third elder Miao naturally had nothing to fear. Yes, this elder is threatening you. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly when she heard that. Her long and narrow eyes outlined a curved arc. It looked extremely demonic and extremely alluring. But her eyes were sparkling with a faint glow. But it was filled with chilliness. It was like the cold wind in December, gathering at the bottom of her eyes. Such an oppressive pressure, even third elder Miao's heart couldn't help but tremble. He suppressed the surging fear in his heart, forcing himself to look as though he was in control of the entire situation. forcing himself not to lower Yi Qing Luo's imposing manner. Young lady, if you still want your little lover to live, then obediently kneel on the ground and admit your mistake. Then kill these old fellows in the Bu family village in front of me. Third Elder Miao raised his head complacently as he arrogantly gave out his orders. His gaze towards Yi Qing Luo became colder and colder. Third Elder Miao only felt carefree. He became even more complacent. Young lady, don't you like to meddle in other people's business? Now I will let you meddle in this matter. How about it? Young lady, what will you choose? Will you save your beloved little lover or save these old fellows who have nothing to do with you? Third Elder Miao's gaze swept past those 50-over-old villagers who were gathered at the corner of the tea stall. The villagers were frightened by his gaze and heard the contents of his words. Their faces were filled with shock and terror. These Miao people were simply too cruel. They actually thought of such a method to torture people's hearts. They were not human at all. The villagers were filled with anger. But no one dared to really vent out their anger. The courage to work together and counterattack in a rampage. They had long been exhausted. At this moment, Elder T hugged the thing in his arms tightly as his steps trembled as he walked out. Young lady, you just promise him to kill us, and let him cure your husband's poison. Elder T. The villagers behind him were stunned and hurriedly called out to Elder T. Elder T slowly turned around, facing the villagers. There were still traces of tears on his face. His tear-stained eyes swept across the villagers who had accompanied him for most of his life. Choking with sobs, he said, "This couple was just an innocent passerby. It was our carelessness that got them involved. All this while, we have been enduring the Miao people's plunder and brutal killings. Time and time again, he had to endure and suffer again and again. But it did not change the Miao people's conscience. Instead, it encouraged the Miao people's brutality and cruelty. All of this is our fault. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Now, this pair of innocent passers-by, because they helped us, caused them to be poisoned by the Miao tribe. How can we sit back and do nothing? How can we watch innocent passers-by be tortured by the goo poison because of our lives? The Miao people had no heart. Don't tell me we don't have any. If this young man really died because of the goo poison, even if we survived, can we really escape from the blame of our conscience? One question after another silenced the villagers. They could not refute. Chapter 24-21. This place is our Bu family's turf. This place belongs to all of us. This place cannot allow anyone to trample, to invade. Elder T's voice, towards the end, was filled with solemnity and determination. He said these words with the heart of meeting his death. Elder T's words landed. He hugged it tightly in his arms, as though it was a treasure. Following that, his vision, bit by bit, swept past all the villagers. This is my personal decision, so even if you don't want to accept, I will not force you. But no need to persuade me, I have already decided. Saying that, Elder T turned around, facing Yi Qing Luo. Young lady, after I die, pass these things to my old woman. Saying that, Elder T passed the things in his hands to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo stared at Elder T's hand, not moving for a long time. Elder T gave her a benevolent smile. Young lady, it's all right. Do it, I won't blame you, just treat it as giving me a release. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly. Not saying a word, not moving. The atmosphere froze in an instant. When Third Elder Miao saw this, he finally felt like he was in control of his own life. He laughed complacently and arrogantly, ha ha ha. Young lady, look, the Bu family village's villagers are so understanding, they all want to sacrifice themselves, to fulfill you two lovers. Why aren't you quickly taking action, fulfill the villagers' sacrifice for you? Third Elder Miao laughed loudly, as he looked at those 50 over Miao people, who were still standing on the same spot, not moving at all. Now the initiative is already in my hands. What are you all still in a daze for? Quick, go over and help that young lady. After all, she's just a young lass who hasn't even grown her hair. You all have to help her kill people by the side. Although his words sounded as though he wanted someone to help Yi Qing Luo, in actual fact, he was forcing Yi Qing Luo to choose. Forcing Yi Qing Luo to kill those villagers. However, after Third Elder Miao finished his words, those Miao people still didn't move. They all looked at Third Elder Miao, as though he was a wax statue. Third Elder Miao pointed at the Miao people angrily. Good. Now this elder can't order you around. Good, very good. He vented his anger onto Yi Qing Luo. Young lady, this elder doesn't have the patience to waste words with you. This elder will give you the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn to think about it. If you still haven't made a choice after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, then, this elder will make the choice for you. Hearing this, Elder T became even more anxious. Little girl, just do it. Our Bu family village has implicated you and your husband. Elder T once again raised the thing in his hand towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. I've lived for most of my life. My only obsession is to wait for my son, to wait for my old woman to come back. Now that I know that my old woman is still alive, I no longer have any obsession. You don't have to worry about me. At this time, a few villagers walked up to her and said, Little girl, Elder T is right. We are already people with half of our bodies in the yellow soil. We will die no matter when we die. This is the territory of our Bu family village. How can we implicate innocent people and sacrifice ourselves for our own lives? Isn't it just death? We're not afraid. Little girl, dying in your hands is better than letting those Miao family village dogs continue to bully us. Chapter 24-22. The villagers were all talking at once. In the end, all the villagers chose to die without any hesitation. They were not willing to implicate the innocent. Looking at these old people in front of her, each and every one of their faces were unafraid of death. Yi Qing Luo's heart softened slightly. There were many bad people in this world. But at the same time, there were kind people. The villagers in this Bu family village were all very gentle people. They could sacrifice themselves for others. This was a kind of noble sentiment. Yi Qing Luo's gaze slowly turned gentle. Cough. Cough cough. A cough rang out, breaking the clamorous argument at this moment. Everyone's gaze turned over. Gu Jingyu sat on the stone bench, one hand placed on the stone table, while the other pressed against his chest. His pale complexion looked extremely weak. Coughing sounds could be heard. The more he coughed, the whiter his face became. That seemingly slender body looked as if it would collapse at any time. You all, listen to me. Gu Jingyu moved his lips, as his voice was hoarse. The villagers immediately stopped their clamoring, waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak. Gu Jingyu moved his body. He supported himself on the stone table, as he tried to stand up. But his entire body was weak, unable to exert any strength. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased, as she slowly walked up, supporting Gu Jingyu with one hand. Gu Jingyu's gentle eyes flashed past a glint of joy. He lowered his voice, as he thanked her. Then with Yi Qing Luo's support, he stood up. A pair of gentle like water, but filled with an irresistible imposing manner, looked at those villagers, as he spoke in a serious and sincere manner. Miss Yi and I appreciate your kind intentions. But your request, we can't do it. Little master, we've already decided. We've thought it through. You don't need to have any psychological pressure. The villagers immediately opened their mouths. Elder T nodded. Little master, this is the best choice for you, and for us. Gu Jingyu slowly shook his head. If I die under the Gu poison, your conscience will not be at ease. But if the entire village, because of me, die under Miss Ye's hands, how can I be at ease? He looked at those villagers. Thank you, for thinking for us, but We can't be that selfish. Young master. Elder T said anxiously, you still have a bright future ahead of you. We are just a bunch of old guys. Half of our bodies are under the ground. Even if we live, it is meaningless. Gu Jingyu's gaze was firm. Everyone lives in this world for a unique reason. No one lives without meaning. I can't let you die for my own life. Saying that, Gu Jingyu looked towards Yi Qing Luo. Miss Yi, you cannot kill these villagers. Young master. The villagers shouted out one after another. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh when he saw how they were trying to shirk the responsibility. How touching. Ha ha ha. Little girl, the final decision is in your hands. This elder is very curious, how will you choose, ha ha ha. Everyone's vision was placed on Yi Qing Luo. The villagers lowered their voices as they pleaded in a low voice, allowing Yi Qing Luo to make a decision. Gu Jingyu shook his head at Yi Qing Luo, determined not to let everyone die together because of his own poison. The scene was once again in an uproar. Chapter 24-23. When did I say that I want to kill these villagers? Yi Qing Luo's clear voice was mixed with a hint of coldness. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she glanced at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's expression stiffened slightly, as though he felt uncomfortable because of Yi Qing Luo's words. And he pressed on his heart as he coughed hard. That pair of gentle eyes flashed past a trace of inexplicable grief. His heart felt as though there was a needle poking at it non-stop. Gu Jingyu gave a bitter smile as his lips twitched. Indeed. He had no place in her heart at all. When Yi Luo didn't deny it, the villagers misunderstood that they were husband and wife. He thought that he was infallible. She had a special place in Yi Luo's heart, a special existence. But in the end, he couldn't even be compared to these villagers. Looking at Gu Jingyu's inexplicable feeling, the surrounding atmosphere became desolate. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. She didn't quite understand the change in Gu Jingyu's thoughts. She couldn't figure it out. She simply couldn't be bothered to think further. Instead she looked at those villagers. Don't say any more, I won't kill you for the so-called cure. Elder T frowned. Young lady, other than the Miao people, no one else in the world can cure the Miao people. We, this group of old fellows, appreciate your kind intentions. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips rose slightly as she slowly walked towards Elder T. She raised her fair wrist and gently pressed the parcel that Elder T passed to her, pressing it back into Elder T's arms. This carries your feelings, carries your longing, you need to pass it to Grandma Bu personally. Elder T was stunned. But young lady. Don't tell me, do you really want your own husband to die from the poison? Yi Qing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu indifferently. He and I are just ordinary friends, he is not my husband. Elder T's mouth opened wider and wider. This time, Elder T didn't treat Yi Qing Luo's explanation as Yi Qing Luo being shy. But, even if he is not your husband, then... Some villagers opened their mouth apprehensively. Even if he was not this young lady's husband. But they let this young master be tortured to death by the goo poison just like that. They were the same, they couldn't accept it. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's denial, Gu Jingyu's heart fell to the bottom. His entire body felt cold as if he was in an ice house. The goo poison in his body kept moving about in his internal organs. He is in pain. But it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Could it be, had he really fallen in love with this girl whom he had only met twice? Moreover, he had given his heart. Otherwise, why would he do that just because of a single sentence from this young girl? His heart ached to such an extent. There's no need for you to say anything more. If I wanted you to die, I wouldn't have saved you earlier. Since I've chosen to save you, I'll protect you till the end. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and calmly suppressed the villager's uneasy words. Then, she looked at the man who had lost all support and was sitting powerlessly on the stone bench. As for young Master Gu, although he and I are just ordinary friends, he was poisoned to save me after all. Logically speaking, I can't just watch him die. Yi Qing Luo's voice was calm and indifferent. It floated into Gu Jingyu's ears. It made Gu Jingyu's heart jump for no reason. Chapter 24-24. The third elder of Miao clan had heard their conversation. He looked at Yi Qing Luo in disdain as he ridiculed, "Young lady, do you think that just because you can defeat me, you will be able to cure my gu poison? Thinking of protecting both sides? Do you really think there's such a beautiful thing in this world?" "I don't know if there's such a beautiful thing, but I know." Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight into third elder Miao's eyes. "You. No matter in which aspect, you're defeated by me." Her voice paused as she sneered, "Defeated by me, you're just a clown." Third elder Miao's face sunk as the anger in his chest continued to burn. Good. Good. You still want to be stubborn with me? I'll let you experience the power of the Miao family's gu worms. Third elder Miao raised his palm. He took out a dagger and forcefully cut his palm. Fresh blood dripped down from his palm. He gave a sinister smile as he opened his palm. He started to recite the Miao tribe's incantation. As he recited, as he looked at Yi Qing Luo's expression, he wanted to see Yi Qing Luo panicking and begging for mercy. But Yi Qing Luo's expression was as calm and indifferent as usual. Her gaze was extremely cold. There wasn't a trace of panic or fear. Instead, it was filled with a chilling cold glint and determination. Third elder Miao's gaze and Yi Qing Luo's eyes met for an instant. Yi Qing Luo suddenly revealed an extremely light and enchanting smile. "Third elder Miao, you can threaten me because of the gu poison in Master Gu's body. If you want to use the gu poison to hurt Master Gu, then I will disregard everything and make a move against you." Third elder Miao's mouth, which was reciting the incantation, suddenly paused. "You dare? You can try if I dare." Yi Qing Luo retorted with ridicule, "As long as you activate the gu worm in his body, I have no worries. Anyway, as compared to Master Gu, you don't want to die." Third elder Miao's face turned steely green as he stared at Yi Qing Luo, as though he couldn't wait to tear her into pieces. However, he still cherished his life and stopped the incantation in his mouth. Gu Jingyu, who was sitting by the side, looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment. Yi Qing Luo's earlier words kept repeating in her mind. She was clearly just a young girl. Yet, he possessed such boldness. Although what she had said to him sounded so cold, Lin Mengya still felt that it was a pity. But, from her words, it was clear that she cared about him. However, if it was anyone else who said these words, they would have been shocked. It was very possible, that such an effect could not be achieved. He was also unable to suppress Third Elder Miao's aura. It was obviously Third Elder Miao who had something which could threaten Yi Qing Luo. However, Third Elder Miao did not dare to act rashly. She was the only one who could be so domineering and overbearing. Furthermore, he had hit the nail on the head and pointed out Third Elder Miao's fear of death. It was clearly a disadvantage. Yet, he relied on his own aura. He had forcefully reversed the situation. Gu Jingyu's gaze towards Yi Qing Luo became increasingly gentle, increasingly filled with some kind of feelings. "Third Elder Miao, as for me, I have no intention to become enemies with the Miao tribe, but since I've bumped into this matter today, then I have no choice but to care about it. Moreover, doesn't Third Elder Miao like to implicate innocent people?" Chapter 24-25. Third Elder Miao's face was ashen. If only he had known that this young girl was so powerful. No matter what, he would never drag this young girl into it. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's smiling face, Third Elder Miao felt like spitting out a mouthful of blood in his heart. "What exactly do you want?" Third Elder Miao asked while gnashing his teeth. As soon as the words left his mouth, Third Elder Meow shut his mouth in annoyance. He couldn't help but slap his own mouth. Right now, he was clearly in control. It was him who could make use of the venomous worm to threaten Yi Qing Luo into not daring to make a move on him. It should be Yi Qing Luo who was afraid. But, after he asked this question, he forcefully lowered his aura by a notch. It had evolved into him, begging Yi Qing Luo to give him a quick death. Handing the initiative over to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as she curled her lips sweetly and spoke in a calm voice. After all, you're also a member of the Meow tribe. As for me, naturally I can't kill you. Hearing this, Third Elder Meow's expression froze and his eyes brightened. That's right. I am an elder of the Meow tribe. I represent the entire Meow tribe. If you dare to touch me, you must, shut up. Yi Qing Luo indifferently glanced at Third Elder Meow. His voice was cold and emotionless. Third Elder Meow's throat tightened, and he couldn't make a sound. Yi Qing Luo slowly took a few steps forward. Third Elder Meow's body went limp, and he staggered backward, as though he was frightened by Yi Qing Luo. His entire face was deathly pale. You cured young Master Gu's goo poison and made the fiercest oath of the Meow tribe. You promised never to cause trouble for the Bu family village again. Yi Qing Luo stated her request word by word. Her eyes were calm and her expression was indifferent. It was as if he was talking about something extremely ordinary. Why should I believe you? Third Elder Meow straightened his neck and glared at him. The only thing he could rely on now was the poison in Gu Jingyu's body. If he cured the goo. Yi Qing Luo had no more misgivings as she struck out at him. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, her long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. Because, you have no choice. What do you mean? Third Elder Meow's face turned even paler, and he took a few more steps back. As though Yi Qing Luo was a dreadful beast. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she suddenly opened her palm towards Third Elder Meow. Third Elder Meow thought that Yi Qing Luo was going to attack him. Ah! He immediately let out a loud cry. He dodged towards the Meow tribesmen who were standing still at the side. But Yi Qing Luo instructed him to simply open his palm. It was very simple and very casual as he waved it at Third Elder Meow. It was a simple gesture. Instead, it seemed like he was mocking Third Elder Meow for making a fuss over nothing. Third Elder Meow felt that he had been played. She was angry and embarrassed. Just as he was about to help a Meow Man to stand up. Suddenly, his palm came into contact with something sharp. A bloody gash immediately appeared on his palm. Fresh blood flowed down his palm. Third Elder Meow retracted his hand in pain as he looked at the wound on his palm. It wasn't considered deep, but it was definitely not a shallow wound. He immediately looked towards the place where his palm had touched earlier in puzzlement. From this angle, through the bright light in the surroundings, Third Elder Meow saw it clearly. Beside that Meow Man, there was an extremely thin ray of light. Chapter 24-26. What was that? Third Elder Meow's face turned pale as he trembled as he stretched out his hand, probing it. He then discovered that was a strand of extremely fine silver thread. Each strand of silver thread was as sharp as a blade. Under the illumination of the light, it reflected sparks, which made one dumbstruck. Third Elder Meow looked at that strand of silver thread in disbelief. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He abruptly turned his head back, looking behind him, at those Meow tribesmen who were unable to move. As expected, he could clearly see that every single Meow tribesman's body was wrapped with strand of silver thread. If one didn't look carefully, there was no way to tell. This was the reason why the Meow tribesmen were unable to move for so long. It wasn't that they didn't listen to him, but their limbs were bound, their bodies were bound. They had no way to move at all. When on Earth. Third Elder Meow only felt his heart pounding in fear. His eyes were filled with shock as he slowly turned his head, looking at Yiqing Luo. His entire body was stiff, totally unable to twist. This young lady, when on Earth, under the circumstances that he didn't know. Using these silver threads to bind the Meow tribesmen, making them unable to resist? From the start till the end, he actually didn't have any sense. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly, as she looked at Third Elder Meow with a light smile. Her 5 fingers casually waved towards his open palm. Third Elder Meow saw it clearly. That bursts of silver cold glint scurried in front of his eyes. Those silver threads were all controlled by Yiqing Luo. Using her hands to control those strands of silver threads. This time, he was completely sure. It was this young lady. Under the circumstances where he didn't sense it at all. Restraining his 50 over Meow tribesmen. Third Elder Meow only felt cold sweat dripping down, as his entire body turned soft, almost unable to stand. Third Elder Meow, you're an intelligent person, so you should be clear that the current you has no conditions and qualifications to negotiate with me. Yiqing Luo shook her fingers. Those 50 over people who were restrained by the silver threads, uncontrollably, moved their hands. One after another, they stretched out their hands towards Third Elder Meow. Third Elder Meow angrily stamped his feet as he berated, "You dare to touch me? All of you stop. All of you stop for this elder." However, the Meow people had no way to control their own consciousness. No matter how much Third Elder Meow roared in anger. These people's hands uncontrollably reached for Third Elder Meow's neck. "I will cure him of the goo. I'll cure him." Third Elder Meow was scared out of his wits. He held his head in a sorry state and sat down on the ground, shouting loudly. Those pairs of hands were about to reach his neck. He stopped. Soon after, the pairs of hands slowly moved away. A path was revealed. Third Elder Meow is indeed an intelligent person. Yiqing Luo alluringly curled her lips as she gave a calm and indifferent smile. Her charming eyes were filled with indifference and coldness. "Then, let's get started." As soon as she finished speaking. All of a sudden, a black pill popped out from his fingertip. The medicine's words fell into Third Elder Meow's lips. It melted into Third Elder Meow's mouth. Third Elder Meow coughed loudly a few times and immediately raised his hand to dig his throat. But after retching a few times, he couldn't spit anything out. "What did you feed me?" Third Elder Meow clutched his neck as he stared sinisterly at Yiqing Luo. Chapter 24-27. Damn it. Now the person who lost more than he gained was him, his Meow tribe. He didn't know where Yiqing Luo got her face to say such words. Third Elder Meow clenched his teeth in anger. The expression on his face contorted into a sinister expression. It looked extremely terrifying. TSK. Third Elder Meow, could it be that? You don't believe that I've poisoned you? Yiqing Luo's little face was filled with doubt as she blinked her eyes. Third Elder Meow clenched his fists and did not reply. Yiqing Luo clicked her tongue as she continued on her own, "But, Third Elder Meow, it's better for you to choose to believe me. After all, in front of you, there's already Little Marquis, and your Meow tribe's eldest young miss." As a warning. When Yiqing Luo mentioned Little Duke and eldest young Miss Meow, Third Elder Meow's face instantly turned pale as he raised his head in disbelief, staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking. You are. The news of Yiqing Luo being hunted down by the entire continent by the Battle King's manor had already caused an uproar in the Northern Waves continent. The Meow people were naturally aware of this matter. Meow Rongrong, the eldest daughter of the Meow tribe, was the one who cured Yuan Kuang's poison. The Meow tribe's people naturally knew the reason why the Battle King manor was searching for Yiqing Luo in the entire continent. Not long ago, Lady Meow returned to the Meow Stockade village in a sorry state. Who knew what they discussed with the Meow tribe's leader? Young Miss Meow announced that she was going into seclusion and refused anyone's visit. The day of the Saintess selection was just around the corner. Young Miss Meow was determined to obtain the position of Holy Maiden. How could Miss Meow choose to go into seclusion at this critical juncture? Third Elder Meow had more or less heard about it. It was said that young Mistress Meow had been poisoned. He was poisoned at the War King's mansion. He thought of how the young prince had been poisoned. Third Elder Meow's body suddenly stiffened. Cold sweat dripped down uncontrollably from his entire body. Yiqing Luo looked at Third Elder Meow's expression and knew that he understood her words. Then, she rubbed her chin and clicked her tongue. Third Elder Meow, I've never been a patient person. Me. Release. Third Elder Meow's face was deathly pale, and he spat out each word in a flustered and exasperated manner. No matter what, he would never believe it. This young girl, is she really only 13 or 14 years old in front of me? Such an oppressive pressure. Such a fierce method. This was a threat that he couldn't resist and couldn't resist at all. Little by little. Third Elder Meow couldn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. But that was the truth. The truth was, indeed, he had no choice. He wanted to live. Compared to young Master Gu, he wanted to live more. He could only choose to take a gamble and believe in Yiqing Luo. He could only believe in Yiqing Luo. He watched as Third Elder Meow walked towards Gu Jingyu with a dark expression. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. It was this kind of mental fortitude. He could even become an elder of the Meow tribe. Was she overestimating the Meow tribe? Third Elder Meow was very clear in his heart. The Gu poison in Gu Jingyu's body would bind him and Gu Jingyu together. Once he was hurt in any way, Gu Jingyu would suffer the same amount of damage. How could she really let the Meow tribesman strangle his neck? However, Third Elder Meow cherished his life. When he met with matters related to his life, he had completely lost all his rationality. This was a battle in his heart. Whose inner heart wasn't strong? Who would be toyed with in the palm of his hand? Chapter 24-28. She had grasped Third Elder Meow's weakness. And also grasped Third Elder Meow's weakness. Yiqing Luo wasn't worried that Third Elder Meow would play any tricks. After all, those two lessons learned from the mistakes of the past had already cast a psychological shadow on Third Elder Meow. Moreover, Gu Jingyu was the young matriarch of the Gu Feng sect. Naturally, he wasn't a stupid person. If Third Elder Meow really had a disloyal heart, Gu Jingyu should have sensed it. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the two of them as she walked directly towards the Bu family village's villagers. Old grandpas, old ladies, later let Third Elder Meow promise you according to the Meow tribe's venomous oath, that he will not harass you anymore. In future, you don't need to worry about being harassed by the Meow tribe anymore. The villagers were so shocked by this turn of events that they couldn't react in time. It was just a matter of a moment. The Meow people who had always been aggressive, overbearing and unreasonable, were actually obediently submitting before this young lady. Furthermore, she even swore a venomous oath to return them a peaceful life. Plop. A sound of someone kneeling on the ground was heard. Old T's face was filled with tears as he knelt on the ground. Young lady, you're the entire village's benefactor. Thank you. Thank you. Originally they thought that today was because of their Bu family village, implicating this innocent young lady. They had not expected that. This young lady had saved the entire village. Yiqing Luo hurriedly knelt down on one knee and helped Old T up. Old Grandpa, didn't I ask for a pot of tea from you? Those villagers also started to kneel down. They all thanked Yiqing Luo for her help. How could Yiqing Luo accept so many elderly's kowtows? She immediately activated her profound energy and dragged their kneeling bodies. Old grandpas, old ladies, if you really want to thank me, in future when I come to the Bu family village, please brew me the best tea. Yi Qing Luo helped Old T up. Old Grandpa, I have some matters regarding Grandma Boo which I want to ask you. Old T raised his sleeve and wiped the tears off his face. Young lady, ask. As long as I know something, I will tell you everything without reservation. The Meow tribe kept robbing you, just to find one person. Who is that person? Why are the Meow tribe looking for that person? Unless it was someone very important to the Meow tribe, or someone very important to the Meow tribe. Why would the Meow tribe use such a method to find that person? Moreover, the Meow people seemed to be very certain. The person they were looking for was in the Boo family village. Elder T was stunned as his gaze went past Yi Qing Luo and looked towards third Elder Meow who was helping Gu Jingyu to cure the Goo Goo. His dry lips slightly pursed. To be honest, we really don't know who the Meow people are looking for. If we knew, we would not have endured the Meow people's plundering and brutal killings time and time again. The other villagers nodded in agreement. I've always felt that the Meow people are deliberately using this as an excuse to plunder our resources. We also want to know, who exactly are the Meow people looking for, why that person is not standing out. After the villager finished speaking, he hurriedly explained, I'm not asking that person to step forward and throw away his life. It's just that, the villagers of the Boo family village have suffered too much because of that person. More than 10 villagers have died. We should at least have the right to know. Yi Qing Luo nodded, expressing her understanding. Listening to the dozens of villagers talking at once, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Chapter 24-29. Almost certain. The Boo family village's people were indeed not sure who the Meow tribesmen were looking for. But the Meow tribesmen were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Boo family village. Looked like they could only wait for third Elder Meow to cure Gu Jingyu's goo before they could get some information from him. About the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Third Elder Meow wiped his forehead full of sweat as he panted heavily as he sat heavily on the ground. His black short shirt was already soaked in sweat. Yi Qing Luo walked over quickly as she looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's face wasn't as pale as before. His breathing had also calmed down. His furrowed brows from the pain and the uncontrollable coughing had also been smoothed out. Seeing Yi Qing Luo looking at him, Gu Jingyu gave a gentle smile as he slowly shook his head. I feel much better now. It should be because the goo has been cured. Yi Qing Luo was assured as she glanced sideways at third Elder Meow. Met with her gaze. Third Elder Meow instinctively crawled back a few steps. He had deeply experienced Yi Qing Luo's boldness and methods. As long as he could live on, he didn't need any integrity. His goo. Goo, I've already cured it, quickly give me the antidote. Third Elder Meow's voice was still trembling. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled as she raised her index finger and shook it at him. No hurry. Third Elder Meow's face turned pale. What else do you want to do? Also, use your Meow tribe's most vicious method. Promise that you will never harass the Boo family village again. Yi Qing Luo said calmly. His casual tone almost caused third Elder Meow's throat to taste a fishy sweetness, and he almost spat out blood. He suppressed his anger as he gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. All right. I promise. He was about to raise his finger as he made a perfunctory vow, but was stopped by Yi Qing Luo's hand. Third Elder Meow frowned impatiently. What on earth are you? Before he could finish his words, third Elder Meow saw Yi Qing Luo barehandedly grabbing a tribesman from among those Meow tribesmen. The Meow tribe's most venomous oath, or perhaps curse. If third Elder Meow isn't using the Meow tribe's venomous oath, then I'll let you personally experience what a venomous oath is. Yi Qing Luo's threatening voice rang beside his ear. That Meow tribesman almost cried from fright. His body trembled as he met third Elder Meow's warning glare. The Meow tribesman froze. In the next instant, a soft hand gently rested on his shoulder. Beside his ear, the girl's clear and cold voice said, You have to think about it carefully. I'm not someone you can casually threaten. The Meow tribesman did not know if he had fallen for the honey trap. He was still awed by Yi Qing Luo's boldness. He nodded repeatedly. I don't dare to hide anything. I will tell you the truth. Third Elder Meow stomped his feet in anger. His vicious gaze landed on the tribesman. But Yi Qing Luo directly rebutted, why? Looking at Third Elder Meow's expression, it seemed that he didn't want to swear according to my request. Since that's the case, then I'll... No, how could that be? I'll swear right now, according to the Meow tribe's most venomous method. Third Elder Meow immediately opened his mouth as he speedily bit his finger and took out a strange-shaped goo worm. Following that, according to the Meow tribe's method, he gave his promise in front of everyone. Chapter 24:30. Third Elder Meow's hand which was holding on to that goo worm paused as he raised his head abruptly. You can't do this. Not only could he not find trouble with the Boo family village, he still had to protect the Boo family village from other troubles. This meant that his plan to use other channels to slaughter the Boo family village had been blocked. This slut. Why did she seem to be able to guess what he was thinking about? Yi Qing Luo only smiled at him. She didn't say anything. Her smile was sweet, but it made that not breathtaking and could only be described as elegant, revealing a bit of enchanting look. But in Third Elder Meow's heart, a surge of terror and fear arose. He trembled slightly as he looked at that extremely faint smile. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and spat out a few words, fine. Count it on me. Yi Qing Luo nodded in satisfaction. Now, can you give me the antidote? There was a poison in his body which he couldn't detect. Third Elder Meow was extremely terrified and frightened. Afraid that he would become like Yuan Kuang. And afraid that he would end up like Meow Rongrong, choosing to go into closed-door cultivation to detoxify. Yi Qing Luo raised her finger and shook it. Third Elder Meow shut his eyes tightly, already used to Yi Qing Luo going back on her words. Tell me your request clearly. I just want to find out something from you. Yi Qing Luo walked to the stone table and sat down. Let's sit down and talk slowly. Third Elder Meow's legs were wobbly. How would he dare to move? Yi Qing Luo didn't force him to sit down. Instead, he poured a cup of tea for Gu Jingyu and a cup for himself. Her actions were leisurely. Every action affected the hearts of the Meow people, following Yi Qing Luo's actions. Third Elder Meow felt that he had aged by more than 10 years today. After Yi Qing Luo finished pouring the tea, she opened her mouth slowly. Who is the person you're looking for in the Boo family village? Third Elder Meow's face turned pale. This is the Meow family's internal affairs. But, it involves the Boo family village, then it's not an internal affair. Yi Qing Luo sneered. Third Elder Meow averted his gaze. Other than this matter, I can tell you everything else that I know. What I want to know is this matter. Yi Qing Luo didn't give in at all and was overbearing. She knew that the person the Meow tribe was looking for must be the internal affairs of the Meow tribe, and also the Meow tribe's secret. Otherwise, with the status of the Meow tribe in the Northern Waves continent, they wouldn't be able to survive. They could totally search for the person the Meow people were looking for, just like how Battle King General searched for her. Third Elder Meow's expression turned ugly. He knew clearly how difficult it was to deal with Yi Qing Luo. But he had not expected Yi Qing Luo to be so difficult to deal with. The person that the Meow tribe was looking for was related to the future development of the Meow tribe. If this girl found out, it would definitely destroy the peace of the Meow tribe. This kind of demon must not be allowed to set her target on the Meow tribe. Third Elder Meow would rather die than submit, huh? Yi Qing Luo laughed in ridicule. It's rare that Third Elder Meow has such backbone. Then I shall fulfill Third Elder Meow's wish, to sacrifice myself to protect the Meow tribe's secret. Saying that, she put down the teacup in her hands, stood up and said to Gu Jingyu, Master Gu, let's go. Gu Jingyu had regained his energy by now, even his complexion was back to normal. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, he cooperated and stood up, following behind her. The two of them had barely walked a few steps. Chapter 24:31. Young lady. The Miao people were looking for a 14-year-old young lady. Why must she be 14 years old? A 14-year-old young lady can be found anywhere. Why must they run over to the Bu family village, which is filled with old grandpas and aunties? Yiqing Luo voiced out her doubts. Third Elder Miao's gaze was wavering. On his face, it was obvious that he was struggling. As though he was hesitating if he should say these things out. But he recalled what Yiqing Luo said, that his patience was not good. He was worried that Yiqing Luo would get impatient. In the end, he was defeated by the fear of death. It's not that a 14-year-old young lady can do it, but... Third Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly as his gaze turned towards those Miao people who were tied up. In his eyes, a sliver of murderous intent was fleeting. Following that, Third Elder Miao raised his head, as though he had made his final decision. He looked at Yiqing Luo without blinking. That 14-year-old young lady is the Miao tribe's traitor. According to the clues provided by the Miao tribe, after that traitor escaped from the Miao tribe, she hid in the Bu family village. After that, there was no more news of that traitor. So, that traitor's clues must be related to the Bu family village. When Third Elder Miao said this, he paused slightly. Since she's a traitor, why did you only come to the Bu family village to investigate? If she's really a traitor, wouldn't the Miao tribe have already asked the royal family or the Qinghua sect to step out? Yiqing Luo's smile rose slightly as she looked at Third Elder Miao with a smile which didn't look like a smile. I don't like to beat around the bush. Third Elder Miao better say it in the most straightforward way. Seeing her smile, Third Elder Miao's face turned black as he immediately said, that young lady is indeed a traitor. She stole our Miao tribe's most sacred ancient gu worm. Ancient gu worm? Yiqing Luo remembered that it was written in the information that Peach had given her. Ancient gu worm, that was the symbol of the Miao tribe. It was actually stolen. That traitor used the ancient gu worm and hid in the Bu family village. After that, we lost all contact. Even the Miao tribe's witchcraft has no way to trace that traitor's whereabouts. Third Elder Miao said, the matter of the ancient gu worm being stolen must not be spread at such a crucial juncture like the Saintess election. Otherwise, the Miao clansmen will definitely panic. Therefore, the higher-ups gave me a private order to go to the Bu family village to find that traitor and retrieve the ancient gu worm. But the villagers said that they don't know who the person you're looking for is. In this village, if a 14-year-old young lady really came, how could they not remember? Yiqing Luo raised her doubts. This, I don't know either. The order I received was to force that traitor to show himself in the Bu family village. The third elder shook his head hurriedly. It's not that I'm hiding anything, but, although we are elders, we don't have any real power in the Miao tribe. Most of the internal affairs of the Miao tribe, especially those related to the future of the Miao tribe, the Miao tribe wouldn't let me know too much. These words were not false. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. Do you know who that traitor is? You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.